5 trillion. 5 trillion, this massively large number. Can you in any way imagine this number, grasp this number? I try to do it. 5 trillion, that's roughly 1/3 the distance from our sun to outer space, measured in kilometers. 5 trillion, that's roughly 700 times the Earth population. And 5 trillion is roughly the size of the Indian economy in 2024. To be honest, I still cannot really grasp this number. And this is all the more frightening as 5 trillion US dollars is the minimum amount we need to invest annually if we want to put the world on a sustainable development pathway. And 5 trillion is just the minimum. The UN estimates this number to be between 5 and 7 trillion. So what can we do about this? How can we make our money change the world? Green and sustainable finance tries to solve this issue. It tries to change the entire financial system. It tries to make us and the financial system think and breathe climate action and sustainability whenever we invest our money. And this is a massive challenge. And I work on this challenge. I analyze policies, I talk to different stakeholder groups, and I try to develop new methodologies. Let us switch perspectives for a second. Let's switch to a perspective that the financial sector really understands. And this is the perspective of risk. A key function of the financial system is to put a price on risk. And a price in financial sector speak is return. So in the end, the financial system always tries to balance out risk and return. I mean, it's easy. If we invest into something risky, we want to have a higher return. If we invest into something of less risk, we accept lower returns. So for example, you would probably ask higher interest rates when you're borrowing money to me than if you would ask it from the US government if you would borrow your money, give your money to the US government. The problem starts arising if this happens. If risk and return gets out of balance. This happened, for example, during the financial crisis in 2008, when the risk in the US housing market was highly underestimated. So you might ask the question now, how does this relate to the climate crisis? How does this relate to sustainability? And for that, we have to do some science, some really basic science. This graph shows our global emission path right now. So we are roughly at 50 gigatons CO2 equivalent per year. This is what we emit from our entire economy. If we want to live up to the Paris Agreement, we need to reduce our emissions massively. We need to cut them by half within 10 years and reduce them to net zero in 2050, so that we stay in a 1.5-degree global heating world. And this requires a massive change in the way we live and in the way our economy works. And as a second step, this translates into financial risks. Interestingly, the same happens here. This is our current emission pathway that we're on, more or less. And for the financial sector, it means the same. Because we keep on increasing emissions, polluting. This means the global warming will be stronger. We'll run into a 4 to 5 degree world. We'll have massive disruptions in our economy. And finally, we will have financial risks and financial results out of that. So whatever pathway, current policies or a Paris-aligned pathway, both ways, we have to understand financial risks. And currently, our financial sector does not fully understand them. So what can we do about it? How can we make our money change the world? We need to act in 3 groups. We have the public sector setting a strong framework. we need private financial business operationalizing ideas, and we need us, the citizens, to demand action. The public sector needs to set a strong framework that is ambitious and that is comprehensive, covering all parts of our economy. I work on the Finance Fit for Paris tracker, which is a tool that tries to analyze in how far is financial market regulation in a certain country aligned with the Paris Agreement. By doing that, we try to compare countries and create a race to the top so that everyone starts integrating these ideas. And we try to invigorate discussions in the countries and in stakeholder groups like these to involve the civil society in these discussions. And here's some ideas of how this could look like from the Finance Fit for Paris tracker, what we could do. First of all, we need investment policies. The government needs to align their budget with the Paris Agreement and with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And central banks, they will need to start analyzing these risks that are coming from sustainability and from the climate crisis. They have massively large portfolios. We're talking trillions here. So they need to start shifting their portfolios. And if they don't do it, and the risks turn out to be undervalued, we, the taxpayer, will have to pay the bill in the end. We need stronger supervision. Supervisors go to financial institutions and ask them, how are you managing your risks? And supervisors will need to start asking these questions for the climate crisis and for sustainability. Because then financial institutions, they will start acting and integrating these ideas. We also want to allocate our money. We want to invest into green products. We want to invest into sustainable products. And if we want to do it, we really want to know, is our investment really green? And for this, we need disclosure. We need information coming from the economy and coming from the financial sector for us to understand how green, how sustainable our products really are. So we need information on resilience of business models, on strategies, or also on emissions. And finally, we need a strong incentive system. We need an incentive system that prefers green over brown investments, sustainable over unsustainable investments. It also needs to push for a long-term time horizon. Currently, our financial markets, they're really short-term focused. They think quarterly results, yearly results, maybe 2 or 3 years. But the climate crisis and sustainability, these are long-term challenges. We have to think 5, 10, 20 years. And this change needs to start right now. And this change can happen, for example, through bonus systems. Which brings us to the financial sector. The financial sector is currently quite slow at operationalizing these ideas, putting it into practice. But this is a really big issue because, first of all, we start to feel the effects of the climate crisis. And second of all, financial institutions already start losing their customers because they cannot answer questions related to sustainability and to the climate crisis. In a TCFD think tank, we try to bring some of these ideas into practice and help financial institutions discuss how this could look like. And here are some key takeaways from discussing it with them. First of all, we need to have a new organizational culture. The top management need to set the tone. In the operational management, there are oftentimes people that really want to change something, but currently they're not able to do it because the top management, the CEO, has to give the go for it. The climate crisis and sustainability, these are really interdisciplinary challenges. And if we want to find good solutions, we need combined competencies. We need to bring together expertise and our experiences to find these new solutions. Finally, we need a strong dialogue. A dialogue between the real economy and the financial sector so that both know what the other wants. We need dialogue within the financial sector so that new methodologies can be developed, that there's cooperation, because we only have 10 years left to reduce our emission drastically. And we need to have a dialogue between us, the citizens, and financial institutions so that we can tell them what we want and they can provide the products for us. So, our role in this game, we the citizens, How can we make our money change the world? I mean, 5 trillion, this seems quite a lot. And compare this to your bank account, you'll probably see these are 2 different dimensions we're talking about. But we have the power, and this is really important. First of all, we need to demand political action. This can be in the form of just raising awareness, talking to your friends, to your family, to your colleagues, making them aware of green sustainable finance and what their finances can really do for the climate and for a sustainable development path. Call your local politicians, ask them about the topic. They usually don't know too much about it, so push them to do more. Or join a political movement and push political movements so that change can happen. We also need to be sustainable customers. Sustainable customers in the way that we need to understand where our money is going, where our finances are going. So tomorrow morning, just call your bank, give them a call and ask them, can you offer me green and sustainable financial products? Or call your pension fund and ask them, when I retire in 30, 40 years, with your investments, will I live in a sustainable world? If they have the answers, that is great. But if they don't, take action. There is a caveat to all of that. And that is, green sustainable finance will not solve the climate crisis. Green and sustainable finance will not put us on a sustainable development path alone. We need strong politics, we need a strong political framework throughout society and throughout our economy, be it a carbon tax or be it some limitations. This is all important because then we have a clear framework. We also ourselves need to still become sustainable customers, green customers. We cannot say, I've done my share for the climate, I've invested my money in a green way, I'm off the hook. No, we still need to become green in the way we consume, sustainable in the way we consume. Otherwise, it will not happen. So green sustainable finance is a great tool and a great part of this entire transformation, but it's just a part. 5 trillion. Look at this number again. I want to compare it to another number, and this is 130 trillion. 130 trillion is roughly global GDP, so the global economic output. If we compare both numbers, all of a sudden, a 5 trillion investment, so a small share of our entire economic output every year, doesn't seem too much for what we can achieve. We can achieve a sustainable world, a world in which climate action is taken, a world that is serving our next generations. And the good news is, we're taking first steps. The EU, for example, has an action plan on financing sustainable growth. You could ask yourself now, is financing sustainable growth a contradiction in itself? I'll leave it up to you. However, within this action plan, the EU is developing a so-called taxonomy. Taxonomy is a classification system that in the end tries to say, this is green, this is not green, this activity is sustainable, this is unsustainable. And for the first time in human history, we're really drawing a clear line between these two. So really making progress on that. Other countries taking the action even further than the EU, being role models in one area or the other. And private business is picking up as well. They understand that they need to serve the customer's demand and they need to develop new methodologies, they need to develop new financial products. But we're still in the first steps. If we want to achieve real climate action, reduce our global emissions, and become a sustainable society, public sector, private financial business, and we all in the room need to start, make our money change the world, and we cannot wait. Thank you.